Hi! So if you missed my video last week where I was talking about what I read in May and June, and that video only has 6 views, so you probably missed it. I live in a hot climate and the apartment's really hot, so we've got a new setup that's temporary for the summer where I'm filming on my phone with no lights. The window is closed this time so we don't have street noise, so it does feel a little bit like a coffin in here, but I did want to film a quick little summer video. For the 3 people who I know are consistently watching, I'm going to explain what this is. This is the mid-year book freakout tag. In the earlier days of YouTube, like 10 years ago, maybe earlier, there was this like kind of video making phenomenon called tags, where it was like basically a different challenge for every video, and at the end the creator would like, and I tag XYZ to do this same challenge. That could be like, what's in my bag, my boyfriend does my makeup, Q&A questions, whatever. And they floated it on YouTube, but that kind of style is totally dead now, except for some reason this video in this community. The mid-year freakout tag thing is still going strong, and I wanted to do one because, you know, why not? The goal of this is to basically just summarize my reading of the last 6 months and look forward to the next 6 months of reading. So I have my questions here written down with what I'm going to talk about. I'll first talk about how many books did I read this year so far. I actually don't know, so let me stop filming for a second to check my app. Okay, I checked my app. I use Storygraph, which is kind of like Goodreads, except the user interface is way better. Anyway, so I've read 48 books this year, which is pretty great. I'm on track to read, I think 85 is my goal this year because I read 84 last year. So I want to do one more. I do read a lot. It's a solid number. So the first question on the tag is, best book I've read this year. I could not decide between 2, which is very much like me. So I've decided to give an answer for fiction and an answer for nonfiction. My answer for fiction is actually the very first book I read this year, which is called Penance by Eliza Clark. This book investigates the murder of a teenager in a like sleepy seaside English town, and the social circle around her and the town history. It also explores like the ethics of the true crime genre, and I thought it was so excellently played out with both like the actual tension and action within it, even though you know who died and how and why. Unraveling everything was really exciting to read, and it's like unput-downable. But I also really liked exploring the ethics of true crime, because I don't think true crime is ethical, but at the same time, I'm lurking on Wikipedia pages for tragedies. Sometimes I'm clicking on a video about a murder and I feel bad doing it. So I like to explore like the philosophy of that, I suppose. And it also uses, because I think the murder in the book takes place around 2016, and this book so accurately captures the war zone that is 21st century digital girlhood, with like Tumblr and email and like the Sims 4 and Taylor Swift discourse. It is insane how like seen I felt in it, in a book about murder. So for me, that's my number 1, though it is a tight race. I read so many good things so far this year, which is why I have a second choice for nonfiction, which is a book called In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a memoir that uses literary techniques and tropes and cliches from horror films in order to talk about her experience in a same-sex domestic violent relationship. The chapters are really short, like little vignettes, so it's highly experimental. And again, because I like a strong, intimate story, but I also like thinking and history. I like when things are both informative and vulnerable, and I felt that this book is that. It is so good. It's so well written. I'm so jealous of the way she writes, and it talks about the history of same-sex violence and like the PR problem with same-sex relationships, that you have to like basically represent your sexuality, which is kind of bizarre to think about as a not gay person. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it well, but I think it's excellent. Best sequel. I've read a single sequel this year, so I think it's gonna have to be, and by a single I've read one series this year, and that is this Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang. This is kind of Mulan meets Avatar: The Last Airbender, Chinese military history, a bit of fantasy, you know, war. For me, the best is The Dragon Republic, which is the second book in the series. If the first book explores, it's basically an extended allegory about China's relationship with Japan. This is China's relationship with the West. We're really expanding. We're seeing different religions. Characters talk about, like, where do you think we're gonna go when we die? There's like theological confrontations in this. There's talk about language and war and civil war and like unseating an empress. So again, it sort of follows that theme of action-packed, and this is quite long, and that it was action-packed for like nearly 700 pages, while also feeling really thought-provoking. And that's why, for me, best sequel. Okay, so the next question is a new release that I haven't read yet. And I've never read any of this author's work before, but I would really love to read The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is, I believe, it's the story of a Native American vampire who's killing buffalo hunters. So it's like gory revenge, which I love, like a he had it coming kind of revenge horror story. So that sounds really interesting. I love reading work by Native authors. I feel like this could be really promising in terms of that like action-packed and thought-provoking. You know, that's me, that's the theme. My most anticipated book that's being released in August is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, same writer who did these books. I also read her book called Yellowface early this year, and that's like in my top 10 of the year so far probably. So this is her new release. It has something to do with Greek mythology, maybe, entering the circles of hell. I can't really be sure. At this point, I'm on the ground begging for more. Give me more books. I'll read anything this woman writes. I still have to read Babel. That was released, I think, in 2022, maybe? That's like a gothic, dark academia thing. So I'm gonna read that one while I wait probably for the paperback to come out of Catabasis, or wait for my digital copy to come in from the library. Anyway, that's my most anticipated. Biggest disappointments. I just ranted about these two books in my last video, and that's The Guest List by Lucy Foley and The Only One Left by Riley Sager. These are books I buddy read with my mom. We wanted some good thrillers, but these ended up being terrible, more terrible than terrible. If you want like a full rant of them, watch the last video, because I really go hard on them, and I just simply don't have the energy to go through it again. But my biggest surprise was a book called I'm With the Band by Pamela Des Barres. This is another memoir. This is by one of like the most notorious groupies of the late 60s into the 70s. And you'd think it would be kind of like a smutty tell-all about sleeping with rock stars, but really it's this really interesting coming of age and psychological exploration of this woman into her young adulthood. She's reading her own diaries, and it really altered my perspective about like the groupie as a phenomenon, as a figure, as a stereotype, and I've been recommending it to anyone who will listen because I just think it's really good. Plus, if you're a rock fan, as I am known to be one, then you'll totally get a kick out of it. Lots of name dropping, which in this kind of book I find appropriate. The next question is a new favorite author. I keep picking up these books, but Miss R.F. Kuang. I've read 4 of her books this year. I plan to read the one that's already been released and the one that's going to be released, so maybe I'll read 6 books by her this year. Usually if I fall in love with about one author a year. Who was it last year? I can't remember who it was last year. Oh, it was Lucy Maud Montgomery, because I read the Anne of Green Gables series, and just, it's like every year I just find somebody to love. Now, the next question doesn't really feel relevant to me, and that's a new fictional crush. I don't really crush on fictional characters anymore. Like, I'm not 15, though I want to respect the girlies who are crushing on fictional characters. However, I don't read the kinds of books where you're crushing on anybody. I'm not reading romance books. I'm usually reading books about deeply flawed, terrible people, or I'm reading memoirs. If I was pressed to pick anybody, because the next question is favorite fictional character. If I was pressed to pick anybody, I'm lifting the books up again. There's a character in this called Kitai, and he's sort of the level-headed best friend of the protagonist, sort of voice of reason, sensitive soft boy while also being extremely intelligent and powerful. And that is kind of one of my favorite archetypes of a male character. Sort of, if they wear glasses and they're real smart but they also kick ass, I'm there for it. So I think that's my answer for that. Book that made me cry. I also talked about this in my last video because it's really rare that I cry when reading a book. I can name on one hand in the past 5 years the times I've cried when reading, and I'm a big time crier. I'll probably cry later today, odds are. So that this book moved me to tears is significant. I'm not just crying willy-nilly at any book, and that is Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. She is a writer from Mississippi. She's mostly a novelist, so she's got a really strong understanding of narrative, and therefore this book is really well-paced and well-written. It is about a 4-year period in her life where 5 Black men close to her were killed tragically before their time. And in this book, she remembers them, she grieves them, and she's also seeing how they represent the larger issues in like the American system and how Black men are more vulnerable to things like a lack of mental health resources, gang violence, substance abuse, political injustice. And one of the Black men that was killed was her brother, and that's how the book ended, was her talking about her brother. And I was weeping. I needed to be held. So I do recommend this book wholeheartedly, but also, like, if you're not ready for it, fair enough. It is a commitment emotionally. Book that made me happy is a different memoir, which is How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair. This book, when did I talk about it in my last video too? I read a lot in May and June. I think I talked about nearly 20 books in that video, and there's 2 really successful reading months. This is a memoir about Jamaica and Rastafarianism and one girl's journey to like using poetry to lift her up out of inefficient circumstances. And it is a deep, intimate memoir. It is really sad in places, but I'm saying it's the book that made me happy because of the way it ended, that it ended with a bridge. It ended with seeking forgiveness and a connection with the ones that hurt you in order to, have a better environment for the next generation. And because I don't read happy books, that's not really my thing. I decided to go with this one because of the way it ended. Next question, most beautiful book you bought. At the time I did these notes, I didn't have an answer for this because I just wasn't feeling like any of the books were that beautiful to hold up on camera and go, hey, isn't it pretty? But then like a week ago, I went and bought me a little something. This is Salt Blood by Francesca de Torres. I haven't read it yet. So pretty. It's like pirate tale. Woman disguises herself as a man and goes on an adventure, I think is the story. I've heard great things about this, but I think it's so pretty with the way it's like kind of got this foil, I think it's called like a gold foil, the ship, the bird, the text. Yeah, really love this one. All right, we're gonna end the video with what I want to read for the rest of the year. I have a little short list here. I've mentioned Babel a couple of times. I want to also reread more. That was a goal for this year. I'm like, oh, I'll reread once a month. I did that for January, February, March. Have not reread since. I just feel like I've got books that I bought that I want to read. I've got books that come in digitally from the American library, and now I've got books from the French library now, so I just feel a little overwhelmed. So I don't know how much I'm gonna reread more, but I'd like to do maybe at least 1 or 2 more rereads this year. I'm on a mission to read banned books, specifically books that are banned from armed forces libraries. I did a big rant about that in the last video. I want to try more fantasy because I'm not going to pick up the books again. I'm not going to pick them up. But the Poppy War series really did changed my mind about whether or not I liked fantasy. And there's another series called Jade City I want to try. I read on like Reddit that if you like Poppy Warrior, you might like Jade City. I've heard it's like sort of a Asian fantasy Godfather, and I'm sold. I'm gonna read more books with my mom. I think this weekend we're gonna start The Shadow of the Wind. And there's a Stephen King book. What is that one called? 11/22/63, about the like time traveling to stop the JFK assassination. I think those are the two books that we want to get to by the end of the year. And I want to read more in French. I've been reading graphic novels in French from the library here in my city, and right now I'm reading a French translation of To Kill a Mockingbird, but in like graphic novel style. It's over there. I can go get it for you if you insist. This is my French To Kill a Mockingbird, but it's graphic novel style. Makes it a bit more accessible. I won't lie, it's a bit above my reading level, but I'm trying my best, and that's generally the idea. It's been a good reading year so far. I'm looking forward to the next 5.5 months. Oh, I heard this fact that absolutely ruined my day, and that is, as of June 1st of this year, we are now closer to 2050 than we are the year 2000. So I hope that ruined your day as well. Like and subscribe if you want to. Peace and blessings. Goodbye.